Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. This Major League Baseball episode covers every game scheduled to be played on Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. In case you're new here, I've built a mathematical model for win probability using hitter and pitcher projections I've created. Note that total projections based on the morning weather data will be added into the sheet a later portion of the morning. In order to make one money line or run line pick on every game that's played 7 days a week, though there are no Sunday shows. That doesn't mean that I recommend you do the same, as my goal in this episode is to share key information about today's games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why certain plays are being recommended in order for you to come up with picks that you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with me or against me before investing your hard-earned money. And as we go through the plays, remember that there are no locks in gambling. So what I'll give you are loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. As always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to see we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. And start off the week great. We did, interestingly enough, end up with a push there in that second Orioles game. Jordan Lyles scratched. What's the play of the day? Was scratched right before first pitch. It's the second time this has happened now in the last week or so, where a starting pitcher has been scratched right before. There's no real way to figure anything out. Get a new handicap, get a new play in. It happens occasionally. A couple times here lately, it's been kind of weird. And I mentioned this before. If you're new here, you haven't heard me say this. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably heard me say it. But just in case you haven't, with baseball plays, remember that for the most part with our moneyline plays, if we're backing a good pitcher, even a respectable pitcher, a guy like Jordan Lyles being one of those, we always want to hit selected when we make that bet. That means that if our guy doesn't go, it's a no bet. We don't want to hit action because that means the other team's pitcher has to go, and if he gets scratched, usually that helps us. There's been like one or two random occasions this year where the guy coming in has actually been projected as better, but it's really rare. So we'll take our chances, and we usually just want to hit selected on those money line plays. And for most sports books, and people may be aware of a couple of weird exceptions, but for the most part, totals and run lines are all going to be based off the listed pitcher. So if that changes, you're just going to be no action. That's how it works out in Vegas. That's how it works in most sports books. So got to push there. Orioles got crushed in that second game. Who knows how it plays out if Lyles pitches, of course. Mariners, we talked about liking the Mariners, being a little bit afraid of them. A couple notes. First off, they lost by one run, so it's not the craziest play at all. But I told you yesterday in the show, I said really like this under that. I really thought playing the Mariners and playing the under made a lot of sense. Mariners had a real good shot to win at that around even money at home. Still a really good team. And I said I really like the under because if the Mariners bats are a little sleepy from the weird travel situation with the way Lance Lynn has been pitching, it should be a really low scoring game. Sure enough, it goes well under the total. So that was an easy under hit there if you caught what I was saying there. So again, not a great Monday, but we've had several days like that splattered in kind of the last many weeks, but for the most part, we've rebounded pretty well throughout the week. Who knows what that'll be today? I will say I love today's slate. Not a single C pick in this episode. I got strong feelings today, so who knows how it'll play out. Like I say, I really truly do mean I never recommend blindly backing. Hopefully you hear what I say and you like what I have to say, and if not, don't play it. But there's a lot that I really like today. But before we get to those games, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you are yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And the only way, assuming you turn notifications on, to ensure you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Reminder, we got that first episode of the college football week 2 picks out. A lot of things we liked there. 2 more coming at you, so a lot of content here this month. We'll keep you entertained in the month of September. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment from YouTube. I love those and try to respond to as many as I can. You can also go check out Horse Racing Today if you like to bet on horse racing. You can find that stuff at horseracingtoday.net. They've got a team of 5 with over 125 years of combined experience in handicapping horse races. There isn't an angle they don't know or bias they can't identify. Again, you can check out their YouTube shows or the website. The links are in the description. And also, real quick, just a reminder, you start up a Patreon page for those of you looking to support the show. Membership starts at just $3 per month. Benefits include things such as exclusive access to our Discord, where me and the co-hosts that I bring on are constantly talking about plays, line movements, all sorts of stuff. You can also get some ad-free shows if you want, and early access to the shows. All shows now being recorded at night. So if you're night owl, this is the way to get the shows right when they're done recording instead of the following morning. Note that the tentative times shows will be released on the website. That's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/schedule. Unfortunately, this Tuesday, no day games for us here, so we will stick to the night game, starting off with a game that Cousin Jared and I talked about yesterday here on the show. Mets and Pirates, supposed to be a day game, got rained out, and now it'll be a night game. They'll play the doubleheader on Wednesday. Taijuan Walker and Mitch Keller. Yesterday we had this game on here, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it. Got a lot of other games to cover, but I will say a couple things. First off, we've gotten 5 cents better on this number since yesterday. It was plus 100. Now it's plus 105. That makes me like it a little bit more. The other thing I like a little bit more about this is the total in this game. Yesterday, or for the day game here, it was supposed to be 8.5. For this game, it now is at 8. That extra half run also matters. The higher likelihood that we have a lower scoring game, the higher likelihood that either team wins by 1 run. It's the converse of the fact that when you get into the games in Coors Field, a lot of times those totals at 11 and 12, the run line prices aren't drastically different than the money line prices are. But when you end up in, Oakland or Seattle or some of these situations with good pitchers and the totals are 7, the run line prices will be, plus 1.5. You have to lay like minus 200 or something insane like that. Because the fewer amount of runs that we expect, the more likely that somebody wins by 1. So this was a B pick yesterday. I've got it as an A pick now. Again, not either one of these things enough, but both of them together justifying the bump up from the B grade to the A grade here. Again, I think Mitch, like I said yesterday, I think Mitch Keller could absolutely keep them in this game. The underlying metrics say that these two pitchers are about the same. And again, a little bit lower of a total means more likely that the Pirates lose by 1, keep it close. And the fact that we get better odds is kind of confusing movement. Again, I think these should go opposite each other, but go in the same direction. I love this play here, starting us off. Pirates plus 1.5 at plus 105. It is an A grade pick for me to start us off. 2 more games getting going before that traditional opening time of 7 Eastern. This one will be at 6:40 Eastern. Red Sox at the Rays. A tight one here in game 1, because Jared and I talked about this one on the Monday game. And unlike the Red Sox, and they had the lead and just couldn't hold it. That's kind of the way it goes. Sometimes it makes sense to play a first 5, and sometimes it doesn't. People ask why am I not giving out first 5 recommendations? I was doing some first 5 early in the season. It just wasn't working better. I mean, the model takes into account bullpen. It takes into account starter length. So, I mean, the model is built to handle this. I could rearrange it for just first 5, but you're also entering in the market with more vig. So a lot of times I just like to play the full game. It didn't work out doing full game on this one, but I mean, it's going to balance on the long run, not really sweating it there. It was a tight ball game. We got about even money on the road with the Red Sox. It was solid play, just didn't kind of work out for us. I'm back on the Red Sox here again, though, on this Tuesday night. Rich Hill versus Drew Rasmussen. Rasmussen's a guy I talked about a lot, like solid pitcher, and I've liked backing him in years past. I think he's good. He's not as good as a 2.7 ERA. Underlying metrics say more like mid-3s. Definitely a good pitcher, and definitely a better pitcher than Rich Hill. But Rich Hill, while he does have that 4.52 ERA, the underlying metrics say it should be closer to 4. He's been pretty league average, which, again, as we talked about before, is incredible for his age. But I think these offenses are about the same. Rays a little bit better with regards to the relievers. I just think the price on the Rays is too steep. The model says this should be Rays minus 141. The actual price I'm seeing is Rays minus 155. So it's got to be Red Sox or pass on this one. Again, this Tampa team is playing well, but everyone knows that you're having to pay the premium for it. They're like the Dodgers light at this point with how well they've played. They're a good team, and the model knows they're a good team, just like the Dodgers. It's just one of these things where blind backing these teams just doesn't make a lot of sense. You got to pick your spots, and I just think they're overpriced in this game. Plus 143 on the Red Sox, though, isn't enough to get me excited, and it's going to be a low-scoring game. Total of this game is 7. Obviously, a massively friendly park to the pitchers. I'm going to take the Red Sox on the run line at -155. It is a little bit of a steep price, which is why it's only a B grade play. But I think this is another one-run game, just like we saw here in the opener of this series. Another game, just like we saw today at 4-3, wouldn't surprise me. 3-2 wouldn't surprise me. And obviously, there's a possibility the Rays win something like 4-2, 5-2, 3-1. I mean, there's a lot of ways the Rays can win this game by more than one run. But when you consider all the ways the Rays can win by one run, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, 4-3, even 5-4 seems a little bit high scoring, but isn't completely off the table. And all the ways the Red Sox can win this game, I don't mind laying -155. The other thing, and playing a lot of run lines today, so I want to mention it here, we are going to have to pay a little bit more of a premium on these run lines here when we've got the road teams, if we're taking the underdog, and we are in this case, because if it's tied late, it's more likely that if the home team wins, it's by one run. Doesn't mean it's not possible. Obviously, you can hit, a walk-off grand slam or something like that. But if it gets tight late, and into the ninth inning or beyond tied, the probability the Rays will by more than one is not very high. So we're going to pay a little bit more of a premium for that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I think the Red Sox on the run line here are a smart investment. Again, I don't love this price. That's why it's only a B pick, but I do think it's worth a look. And I think run line's a better play than the money line, just because, again, with a low-scoring game, you're giving up some plus odds here. So maybe you split your bet. Maybe you put sprinkle a little bit on the Red Sox. Maybe they pull it off. But here I just think, again, there's some, according to the model, 42% chance the Red Sox win. Plus, there's just a pretty decent chance also that if they lose, when they lose by one. Not the only scenario, but a very common one. So -155, I think, is solid odds here on the run line. Not amazing, not something I love, but something I do like here for the game there in Tampa. The other Florida team playing in the earlier slot, 6:45 Eastern, first pitch, Marlins at the Phillies. Jesus Luzardo versus Aaron Nola. Luzardo, for the most part, looking really good this season, looking really good coming back from injury. He's had a couple of hiccups. So it hasn't been all good, but Aaron Nola's kind of been in the same boat. Obviously, Aaron Nola a better pitcher, but has had a couple of hiccups here as well. Both these guys have almost identical ERAs. Luzardo 3.44, Nola 3.43. The underlying metrics say that Luzardo's ERA should be in the low threes and that Nola should be in the upper twos. Two really good pitchers here, and the model shows that. Cousin Jared outlined it yesterday, and so I feel like most of y'all know this, but maybe not. Again, if you're new, in the sheet that you can, again, find on the website or in the show's description where I put all this out in table format, there'll be a number to the right of the starting pitcher, and that's their projection. 100 is average, lower is better. Nola gets a 74, Luzardo gets an 89. Two good pitchers in this one. And a total of 7. Again, I haven't pulled that weather data in. It's not quite as accurate the night before. And so I just don't want to mislead people. I'd just rather look at that in the morning, play that a little bit closer in. But the total of this was 7. So that tells me we're expecting chillier weather. There's a lot of lower totals here on this Tuesday. It sounds like we're expecting more chillier weather as we're into September. Just as I mentioned before here, you got a total of 7, a lower scoring game. This should be a tight contest. Plus 1.5 on the Marlins at -115 to be a great pick. I think they can hang in there. I think Luzardo can absolutely keep him in this game. Obviously, there's a chance the Phillies run away, but since we're close to even money here, I think the Marlins make a lot of sense. On the money line, the model might actually indicates that there's a slight edge on the Phillies. The model says -233, and the money line is Phillies -222. The issue is I just don't want to lay those big odds, as we've seen here so much recently. Laying these big odds on the money line has just not been a profitable venture. The -150s, -170s, maybe those are some okay numbers for, depending, it's kind of the cut line in there, those upper hundreds. But when you get to the -200s, a solid -200s, at -300s, so moneyline plays just haven't been very good. I just don't want to lay -222 with the Phillies, not against a guy like Luzardo, who can absolutely single-handedly keep the Marlins in this game. The Marlins aren't going to score a lot of runs, especially on Nola. I'm absolutely aware of that. But if the Phillies win this game 1-0 or 2-1, that would not surprise me at all. And you just never quite know 100% with Nola. He's also had as many hiccups as of late as Luzardo has. Not a lot, but just every once in a while. I just think -115 is solid here for a really low-scoring game. I just don't expect the Phillies to score a lot of runs here on Luzardo. The other thing to note is the Phillies are pretty left-handed heavy offense and get a ding facing a lefty, so their offense only rates slightly above average. They're going against a lefty. And these two teams' relievers, the Marlins relievers, grading closer and closer to league average as the season's gone along, as they've looked more like I thought they would at the beginning of the season, which is closer to just a lot of depth, not a lot of star caliber. But definitely enough to keep them in this game. Obviously, the Marlins might lose 2-0 or something like that, but around -115. Talk about having to pay the premium for the road team. We're not really having to pay it here because obviously the Phillies are really good. Obviously, Nola's really good. It's just the odds are too much here. If you're playing the run line on the Phillies, if you're going to play the Phillies, I'd play the run line. I just don't like playing the run line at home against a guy like Luzardo who can keep them in it. I'd rather play the run line on a home team where I just think it might get really ugly. And I'm not really concerned about what if it's 3-3 in the eighth and now I'm sweating, hoping to get 2 in the eighth before it gets to the ninth, that sort of thing. And I think it could be a tight one here again, a low total, and a guy in Luzardo who not 100% confident he'll go out and dominate, but absolutely has the stuff to keep the Marlins in this game. 7-5 Eastern first pitch, Blue Jays, the Orioles. No line on this one out yet officially for us. There are a couple of shops that have a number on this book. The prices I'm seeing right now are pretty close to around even money for both sides. Model says Orioles -106, slight home favorites. Blue Jays a better team in this situation, but the game in Baltimore basically wipes that out around a coin toss for this game. So kind of just hoping for some plus odds on the Orioles would be good, even around even money. Again, model says slight Orioles edge, but it's really small. And after the drubbing they took today, the model might actually bring that down when I re-update things in the morning. It might actually drop it down a little bit more, but plus odds on the Orioles would probably be solid on this one. Assuming it is these two pitchers that we're projecting, Mitch White and Kyle Bradish, both of these guys are very average pitchers. Both of them have inflated ERAs, but the underlying metrics for both of these guys are much closer to 4. Both just kind of average pitchers, not bad. Both these teams' relievers are solid. Again, I give the Orioles a little bit of an edge there, but of course we give the Blue Jays offense the edge. And again, that's why it's only a coin toss game given the fact that it's in Baltimore. Obviously, if it's in Toronto, I'd have the Blue Jays as solid favorites in this one, but that's not the case here. So right now, again, model says 51.4%. My hunch is in the morning when I update this, it's going to be a little bit lower than that. It's going to be more like Orioles, basically even money. So again, hoping for plus odds there. I'm assuming that we're not going to get plus odds on the Blue Jays, so I'm assuming we'll be on the Orioles. Question will just be based off what the total is it more of a run line or a money line play? And depends on what sort of value we can grab on that. Twins at the Yankees, 7:05 Eastern first pitch. An A-grade run line play on the Twins here on Monday. Twins hung in there, just couldn't quite get it done. Yankees hit a couple of extra runs late. Both of, I think, two-run home runs, both those are solo shots, double, something like that. Twins hung in there. It was the right idea. Archer pitched better than I expected. But that's the casualty of baseball. I mean, sometimes you're going to, sometimes that game plays out 4-3. Sometimes it plays out 5-2. Couldn't get it done. I'm back on the run line on the Twins today with another A-grade play. It didn't work here for us to start off the series, but I think this sets up to be yet another situation like we talked about previously, very similar to, say, that Marlins game. The only difference here is I trust the Twins a whole lot more than I trust the Marlins. Obviously, Garrett Cole's a fantastic pitcher, so I don't need any takes about that. I'm well aware the model likes Cole. I think Cole's really good. The model gives him a 77 rating. I mean, he's solidly in that third tier. Again, Jacob deGrom, tier number 1. And then tier number 2, the Verlanders, the Scherzers of the world, the Alcantras, those guys. Garrett Cole solidly in that third tier, just behind those guys. 3.28 ERA on the season. Underlying metrics have him right around 3. Joe Ryan, though, consistently just continuing to have a solid season and put up good numbers. 3.88 ERA on the season. The underlying metrics don't like him that as much. I think he's closer to average, but you have to remember here, more of a fly ball pitcher. And again, a game that has a total of 7, which indicates we're not expecting hitter-friendly weather. And so if it's a cooler night, wind blowing in, that sort of situation that would lead to a total of 7, because otherwise with these two offenses, a total of 7 would be absurd. If this was a hot summer day, you easily could talk me in a total of 9 here, even with Cole for sure 8. Right? I know Cole's going to bring that total down, but only so much. So it tells me, again, we're talking about a cooler night in New York, ball not really flying. Obviously, you have to watch out the Yankees can hit some home runs, but he's also going to get a lot of fly ball outs if the ball's not really flying out. You just got to make sure you don't surf one up to a guy like Judge who can hit one out, in 10-degree weather, that sort of thing. Same setup as we talked about before, though. It's Twins are past. The model says it should be Yankees -139. So minus almost 200 of the Yankees is insane. The Yankees are more likely to win this game than the Twins. Absolutely. So again, I don't need anyone saying the Yankees should win this game. I know that. The model knows that. We all know that the Yankees are favored and they should be favored. The only issue is how much should they be favored by? And prices out here -200. We're back to the days that we saw most of the season, which is if you blind back the Yankees, it's not a good investment. And I'm well aware they went on that torrid run, and if you backed them, then that was great. But during that torrid run, for the most part, people weren't backing them at the start of that. They might have backed them at the end of it. And then if you kept batting them for the next month, you lost your shirt just backing them. But they are a good team. They've always been a good team. I've said that throughout their struggles, they're still a good team. The truth is they were never as good as that insane hot streak, and they are never as bad as this cold streak. They're always somewhere in between. Still a good team, but the Twins are a good team too. And in a low-scoring ball game, a price like minus 190 on the Yankees is absolutely absurd. There's value on the Twins' money line if you want to take it. That was the way Cousin Jared went for game one of this series. Again, didn't work out. But if you want to take a flyer on the Twins at plus 175, that makes a lot of sense. Again, with the model saying 140 is a reasonable price. I'll take the run line here at minus 130. Again, the fact that this is so close to even money blows my mind. Again, a total of 7 means we're likely to see a low-scoring game. I'm eyeing a lot of these run lines that I'm taking on these underdogs, and I'm saying a couple of them are going to win, a couple of them are going to lose by one, and a couple of them are going to get destroyed. I do not have any, disillusions of taking all these plus 1.5s that all of them are going to hit. We're not going to hit all of them, but there's a lot of good scenarios. I think if we get, we could easily get something like 3 of 4, 3 out of every 4, that sort of thing, where we're not going to get all of them, 2 out of every 3, whatever. But the odds we're playing them, even though we're playing minus odds, we're winning 2 out of 3. That's going to work out really well. A couple of these close to even money, we don't even need to hit that many. So another situation where I just think there's value on the underdog here. And again, I'm choosing to play run line because a lot of these teams have lost by 1. And so a couple of them are going to win, but I just don't want to end up with 3 of them losing by 1 and me just shaking my fist at the sky, that sort of thing. But again, value on the money line if you want to split your bet a little bit, 1/3, 2/3, 50-50, whatever. Value on the Twins here. Garrett Cole's really good. The Yankees are a good team at home, but the price is just not a good long-term investment in my opinion. 7:40 Eastern, first pitch, Reds at the Cubs. Justin Dunn versus Wade Miley. I am not a fan of Justin Dunn. He's pitched 5 times this season to the tune of a 4.63 ERA, but the underlying metrics say it should be around 6. He doesn't project very well. I have no faith in him. I don't have a lot of faith in most of the Red starters. It's funny. You have the guys like Lodolo, who you absolutely – I could get behind a guy like Lodolo, and then you have guys like Justin Dunn, and it's the opposite story. It's like their starters are respectable or they're absolutely terrible, and Dunn falls into that latter camp. Wade Miley, on the other hand, league average – is a pretty good way to describe him. He has gone 19 innings this season with a 2.84 ERA. It's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. He's not that good. Underlying metrics for the season have him close to 4. He projects a little bit in the low 4s. Solid pitcher. Many people talked about him as a at this point, just a low-key, solid signing, back into the rotation, inning eater type guy. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to stay healthy this year, but a solid pitcher here for the Cubs. As mediocre as the Cubs offense is, I think it's a lot better than the Reds offense, especially with the Reds trading away half their guys and losing Votto for the season. Relievers, I'm not a fan of the Cubs relievers, but I'm also not a fan of the Reds relievers. They've gotten better from the start of the season. I don't like either set of relievers, but the fact that the Reds maybe have a little bit of an edge with the relievers is the only hope they have in this game, is to keep it close and hope the relievers keep them in it. But even if that's the case, the Cubs offense is still better than the Reds offense by more than the Reds relievers are better than the Cubs relievers. So it's going to be Cubs edge from start to finish. It's going to be big edge to start. So about that first 5, I'd be more comfortable playing a Cubs first 5. The problem is you're paying a premium for that. I'm not the only person in the world who's thinking that. Everyone's well aware of this. Everyone else is looking at the same sort of numbers I am. Now, how they're baked is where we get a little bit of discrepancies. That's where we try to take advantage of it. But nobody's out there saying that the Cubs aren't more likely to win at the first 5. So the problem is, by entering into a market with more juice, you're having to pay pretty big odds in a market that with only 5 innings, there's more variability, which should trend everything towards 50-50. But this number is not going to get trended towards 50-50 because everybody knows the Cubs have a huge edge at starters. So you can play the first 5. It's just you're paying the premium for it. I just rather go full game. It's minus 165. It's an A-grade play for me. I think the Cubs should be massive favorites in this one. Model says minus 184. As long as it's minus 190 or better, I think the Cubs are a smart investment. So minus 165 is just can't pass it up. I don't want to play run line here. I don't like the run line at home, again, unless it's this game's going to get ugly, and I think it might get ugly early, but the Cubs relievers are so bad it might get scary late. I don't really know exactly how it's going to play out. There's just a lot of ways the Cubs can win this game, and so 165 isn't that big of a price. I'm comfortable laying it. Again, it's an A-grade play. really up to about 170. In the 170s, it's still a solid B grade play. And then in the 180s, probably drops to a C grade for me. 7:45 Eastern, first pitch, Nationals at the Cardinals. The Nats, I mean, hats off. And I said yesterday, today, the Nats aren't going to keep scoring runs. And lo and behold, they scored runs again. So it's just a constant reminder, baseball's weird and you never really know. And I'm going to say it, I don't think they're going to keep doing it today, but you never really know. There's a reason on every show I say there are no locks in gambling because weird things sometimes happen. So not what we expect. This Nationals offense is not very good, but it's been working for him lately. I'm just going to have faith that I don't want to step on anybody's toes here, but to me, the bottom line is if you take 3 baseball games in a row with 3 different pitchers and you think that means anything for the next game, there's literally mounds of evidence going against that theory. Maybe if you talked about like half the team is out and you took 3 new games where it's like you see them unhealthy or whatever, maybe football, different story in football, especially with injuries, especially with because football's a team sport, right? Baseball's not. Baseball's an individual sport masquerading as a team sport. And so assuming it's all the same players, and it is, these 3 games are not predictive going forward. They would need to do this for probably even more than 162 games for me to say that it matters more than all the mountain of evidence and data that we have on these players from previous seasons. I'm just following the data here and saying what we know is the best prediction of going forward, and 3 games is nothing. So I'm not baking those 3 games in whatsoever. There's no such thing as a hot team. With regards to they hit the ball well for 3 days, they're going to do it as well. There's a reason in baseball they always say momentum is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. It's basically just a reminder that it doesn't really matter how well you do in one game because the next day is a whole new, literal, pun intended, ball game. Doesn't mean the Nats won't do well again today. Baseball's weird, and I always talk about this when I go back to the example. As an Astros fan, back when they were losing 110 games a season, there was the year the Phillies won the World Series, and I believe it was September. The Astros went into Philadelphia and swept the 4-game series. That was super, super weird, and we've seen it with things like this year. We saw the Pirates go into LA and sweep the Dodgers. I mean, that was insane. We've seen the A's sweep the Astros, right? So we see weird things happening. The Nats might do well again today, but these 3 games are not predictive. They don't mean anything. We're still talking about good players and bad players, and 3 days doesn't just make you amazing. So let's just stick to our sound statistical principles that we are well aware of. The Cardinals should be massive favorites in this game, and I think they should be favored by more than they are. The model says 271. The actual price is 238. I'm just going to shift to the run line. I played the money line here on Labor Day, and as I thought more about it, I just realized I wish I just would have gone run line for the purpose of if the Cardinals are going to win, it's going to get ugly. I talked about not liking to play run line favorites as the home team unless I think it's going to get ugly, and I think that's the case here. And if the Nats win, we've saved ourselves some juice, like Cousin Jared wisely did for us here on the Monday show. So rather than playing the money line of 238, which I think you can if you like money lines, I think 238 is fine. I don't like playing that big price. I regretted it almost instantly on the first game. So I'm going to run line minus 120. It's not that steep in my opinion. So it's an A grade play on the Cardinals run line. They've got massive edges everywhere. They still have massive edges here pitching. Anibal Sanchez for the Nationals, 5 starts now in a row. Good. We talked about how bad he was, but I mean, his rating's rising and hats off. I mean, he keeps pitching well. So like kudos for him. It's time to, next time he comes around, maybe, look at him a little bit differently, right? He's pitched really well as of late, which is just surprising how good he's looked. And maybe there's something there, right? But the model doesn't believe in Espino, and the model's liked Jose Quintana all season long. So I think there's just a pretty big edge here. The ERAs for these guys are about a run apart. The underlying metrics agree with that and say that Quintana's about a full run better. The Cardinals relievers are better. The Cardinals offense is better. Again, these 3 games I'm not taking to mean much. If we looked at 3 games, looked at the Pirates beating the Dodgers, why aren't the Pirates, winning the division, right? Like, because we all have brains and we all realize the Pirates had 3 great games and that didn't make them a good team. The Nats have had 3 great games and they might have a 4th one. Remember, let's think about the gambler's fallacy here. The gambler's fallacy, which is the roulette wheel's been 3 red in a row. It's hot. It's going to be red again. Or the other thing is the same gambler's fallacy. It's been 3 red in a row. It's bound to be black. Both of those are false. It doesn't matter what the previous three were when you're talking about that fourth one. All it matters is the probability that the Nats win 4 in a row. At this point, they've already won the 3. The probability they win 4 in a row is now the probability they win this game. It doesn't really matter that they've won 3 in a row. They're not due for a win. They're not due for a loss. We just have to analyze this game, these pitchers, these players, and the Cardinals are much better. Doesn't mean they'll win. There are no locks in gambling, but I like the Cardinals at this price. Close to even money here at minus 120. Run line is an A-grade play for me. Guardians and the Royals. 8:10 Eastern, first pitch. Shane Bieber versus Chris Bubich. Obviously, Bieber is a really good pitcher. Chris Bubich, not. It's kind of that simple in the handicap. There, Bieber's a 3.06 ERA. Underlying metrics say that is pretty spot on. Bubich, 5.47 ERA. Underlying metrics say that it's actually a little bit worse than that. Model says this should be Guardians minus 198. I'll take the Guardians minus 181. It's a B-grade play. I think they can get this one done on the road. I think the price is too short. You could totally look run line in this one. This is a real coin toss between the two, in my opinion. Obviously, the Guardians have edges everywhere, but offensively, it's not that big of an edge. I mean, the biggest edge here is the fact that the Guardians have amazing relievers and an amazing starter here. Shane Bieber being right in that same tier we talked about with Garrett Cole. Really, really good, knocking on the door of that second tier, just not quite there. It's the fact that the Guardians have massive edge pitching, and the Royals pitching is going to be really leave a lot to be desired. Road team here, you can take the run line. I'm going money line. I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other. This is just the way I'm playing it. I'm going to go Guardians minus 181 B grade on this money line. 8:10 first pitch. Eastern time here, Rangers, the Astros. Astros winning Monday 1-0 behind Hunter Brown. And I thought he had a fantastic start. And I talked about this with Cousin Jared in depth. We probably spent way too much time talking about it there yesterday. But I really liked the kid. And I thought that the model didn't even know how to project him because of his meteoric rise. I'm expecting him, when he makes his debut in the ranking systems, to be much higher than you'd think for a prospect. So we talked about the Astros are in a comfortable position. You've seen over the last several years that when they're able to bring up a prospect pitching-wise, it's someone who is ready, and you can see he was absolutely ready. Tonight they'll throw an even better pitcher here in Framber Valdez. Again, right in that tier with Cole and Bieber. Dylan Cease, another guy right in that same mix, just really, really good starting pitchers against Glenn Otto, who's not really good at all. 42 ERA for Otto. Underlying metrics say it should be worse. 263 for Framber Valdez. Underlying metrics say low threes is where he's at. He's also given the Astros incredible length in the season. Not quite Sandy Alcantara length, but still pretty good. Astros relievers better. Astros offense better. This is all Astros here. Model says it should be Astros minus 277. So Astros minus 257 is a perfectly reasonable price if you want to play it. I don't think that's the craziest idea. I'm going to go run line. Again, talked about not loving run line teams at home, but again, this one is the one I think can get ugly. I didn't take the run line here in game one of this series. Just saying there's a lot of ways the Astros can win, but I didn't really know how it'd play out. I thought a 1-run win was more possible. Here, obviously, a 1-run win still is possible for the Astros, but I think it's more likely it gets out of control, that the Astros offense gets hot against some bad pitching sometimes, and I think it's a situation where they're going to put up 5 or 6 runs off of Otto, and then I don't think the Rangers get much off Framber. The last time they faced him, they only got 2 solo home runs, so home runs are pretty fickle. Pretty inconsistent, hard to say what will happen. The pitcher might give up 4, might give up 0. That's the only thing. But the Rangers weren't able to score a single run off him that wasn't home run aided. And that's kind of what I expect here. Maybe he gives up a run or 2, but I expect it to, not much. I expect him not to give up much. And if he does have a bad start, it'll probably be the home run, which just is always possible when you're backing baseball teams, right? In general, I expect a good start from Framber. So I'm really on the run line. I think the Astros run away with this one. A minus 120 is pretty solid. It's only a B grade play for me, though. It's not enough of an edge to warrant an A grade at these odds. Again, it's just always a little bit scary playing the run line for the home team. I'm doing it for the Cardinals because the edge on the Cardinals discrepancy, both of them, the model says should be in the minus 270s on the money line, but the money line price for the Cardinals is about 20 cents better. So it's just kind of an easy way we can convert to probabilities there that I gave the Cardinals an A grade because the discrepancy is higher than the one for the Astros. So I'm trusting that translation and saying that the Cardinals run line would be an A grade play, but the Astros is only a B grade. But I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs. It's not drastically different. I really like both of these home teams to get it done and run away with victories. 8:40 Eastern, first pitch Brewers at the Rockies. Brandon Woodruff versus Chad Kuhl. Another situation where the starting pitching is drastically different. Woodruff, not quite as good as the Biebers and the Coles, the Fromber Valdez. His rating, according to the model, is 85, but Chad Kuhl, not very good, a full standard deviation below average at 116. Kuhl has a 5.19 ERA, and the underlying metrics say that's pretty spot on. Woodruff 354. The advanced metrics say that's pretty accurate as well. Of course, the Brewers offense is better. The Brewers relievers are better. So I was going to show we really hoping to get good plus odds in the Rockies, but you saw in the morning when the price came out that the Brewers price was a little bit short. So we ended up being on the Brewers, and that worked out well as they won. But I think it's like Cousin Jerry and I talked about yesterday that the odds really matter in Denver. And the way you play it is just try to get the better odds. If you play the favorite, you probably play the run line. If you play the dog, take the money line because you just saw the runs. There's just so much more variability. Just take the better odds. It's the better way to go. Model likes the Brewers here. Says that they should be favored by a price of minus 191. So minus 185 is the price I'm seeing right now. That gives us a Brewers edge, but I'm going to follow that advice and take them on the run line at minus 1.5. Odds of minus 125 for the road team is pretty good. You notice some of these road run line favorites, you're having to pay bigger prices than this. So minus 125 is a solid investment. It's hard to give anything an A grade in Coors Field, though. Like I said, the variability just goes through the roof. So I try not to give A grade plays there. Occasionally I still do, but it's probably a good principle just to never give an A grade in Coors Field because you just never know what's going to happen in that ballpark. So I like the Brewers, but a B grade play for me on the run. I think they're worth a look. Woodruff is a really good pitcher. You always have the fear of, can he figure out how to deal with the fact that, the curveball doesn't move the same in that altitude. But in general, even Woodruff struggling to figure that out is still probably a better pitcher than Chad Kuhl is. Brewers offense better, Brewers relievers better. Lots of runs expected in this one, totals 11. Lots of runs usually expected in Coors Field. They should be able to get it done for us. So I'll take the Brewers on the run line at minus 125. Again, a B grade play for me. 9:07 first pitch. Eastern time there. Detroit at the Angels. Eduardo Rodriguez versus Mike Myers. Rodriguez is a pitcher who's had many a good season in his major league career. He's only pitched 11 times this season to the tune of a 4.17 ERA and is just consistently solid. Underlying metrics say maybe a tiny bit worse than this year. But honestly, this year he's been very league average, and that's been probably the worst year he's had since his rookie season. Of course, he missed the entire 2020 season. The pandemic short year didn't pitch at all in that one. But for the most part, pretty consistent, solid pitcher here for the Tigers. Mike Myers for the Angels, a guy I expect nothing from. He's thrown 38 innings across 20 games this year. He's made a few starts, but you just do the quick division there, and that's under 2 innings and outings. So he might go deeper. I think he had a start earlier this year where he actually went kind of deep, and that was surprising. If it's going to happen, it's going to be against the Tigers, right? The Tigers offense is the joke of baseball, right? So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen here. But in general, 5.17 ERA, the underlying metrics say it should be in the mid-5s. So possible, obviously, but I don't expect him to have a good start like that previous one where we were all surprised at how well he looked. I just think that's an abnormality. Massive starting pitcher edge here for the Tigers. Obviously, the relievers are better than the Angels. The issue, of course, that we have in this game is that the Angels have a okay offense, a so-so offense, and the Tigers' offense, as I mentioned, is absolutely terrible. So that's the downside. But the model in this one says the Tigers should be minus 112 favorites. That the edges they have pitching-wise should be enough to make them road favorites against the Angels. The fact that we're getting plus 122 is a gift. I've seen this number bouncing around in the low 120s to around 130. Plus odds is just a gift here on the Tigers. I love it. It's an A-grade play for me. I'm not playing run line. You can look run line if you want. I just don't want to have to lay massive odds here in this situation. I'd rather just say the model says the Tigers should be favored. So, if they got a better than 50% chance of winning, even if it's not by much, give me these big plus odds. It just makes too much sense to play on the money line, in my opinion. Again, run line probably not a bad play, but I don't see it being worth those odds at this point. I just think take them on the money line. Tigers got a good chance to win this one again with a massive edge in the starting pitcher department. 9:40 Eastern, first pitch. Diamondbacks at the Padres. Diamondbacks getting a solid win here, opening up this series on the road, a 5-0 victory in Game 1. And talked about Ryan Nelson. Just didn't expect much from him. Prospect coming up. Again, the model treated as a bullpen game. Just said, hey, not going to go deep, not going to be different than the bullpen game. And sometimes prospects come up and impress, and he looked pretty good. Padres offense, again, kind of been hit or miss since all the acquisitions, especially at home, still been mostly miss. Things aren't going to get really any easier for him here tonight against Merrill Kelly, a guy who's, like we talked about, been constantly undervalued and been a very solid, respectable pitcher under the radar, against Joe Musgrove, whose rating is slipping at this point. Model says these two pitchers are about equal, which is, Kelly's been solid all season, but Musgrove, just a tale of two seasons again, amazing early on, just kind of so-so for the most part, the back half of this season. Obviously, the Padres have a better offense. I guess better relievers. The Diamondbacks relievers are better. The Padres relievers, you just can't really trust them. The Padres should be favored in this game on the strength of their offense and the game being at home. Absolutely. I just think they're overpriced. Just like I thought they were overpriced here in Game 1. And when that number came out, we ended up being on the Diamondbacks. I'm on the Diamondbacks again here, run line. It's minus 150 odds. It's a B-grade pick. You can take a shot on the money line if you want. I don't think that's crazy, but a total of 7, another situation with a road team on the run line, I think makes a lot of sense. Again, some of these situations, we're not going to get them all. I think we're going to get most of them. And you just never know on any given night how many of these teams are going to lose by 1. So if you want to take all on the money line, you can. That's what I did for most of the season. And those were the type of B-grade plays that tanked the B-grade's record. But if you go back and look at how many of them lost by 1, if I'd have taken the run line on all of them, those B plays would be profitable in the season. They're the only blemish on the money line run line record for the year. So I'm switching to run line just because in the long run, I think that's going to be a smarter investment. You never know on any one given night, but this is my strategy mostly for this night is run line road dogs here. Again, at odds that I think are favorable to us. Again, like I said, you could take money line if you want. The issue is the money line right now I'm seeing is 148, and that's what the model says it should be. So not a ton of value there. Maybe worth a flyer because they could pull it off, but also, again, I think a situation where the Diamondbacks should hang in there. Anything can happen late. And if the Padres win late, probably by 1 run, so we're probably safe with regards to winning this on the run line. A 9:40 p.m. Eastern, first pitch, White Sox and the Mariners. Talked about the Mariners at the top of the show. No need to really rehash that other than to say it was a tight game, low scoring, just like we kind of thought. Made the Mariners play the day at massive plus odds. Lost by 1. That's what happens. As we talked about, should have taken them on the run line as they were plus as an underdog, right? And that's been kind of the theme of this season. A lot of these dogs are losing by 1 runs, and we saw it there in Seattle. A little bit of a different story here today, whereas Marco Gonzalez is a pitcher who, not as strong against Lance Lynn, who's really started to figure it out and pitch well as of late. Was a massive edge the White Sox talked about on the show, acknowledged that absolutely, and acknowledged the fear we have of the White Sox hitting lefties better. They didn't really hit Gonzalez very well, but they did get enough. They eked out enough runs off of him. Different story here today, though. It'll be an edge to the Mariners with regards to the starting pitcher, and an edge to the Mariners in that they're throwing a right-handed pitcher in Logan Gilbert. 3.35 ERA. Underlying metrics say it should be in the mid to upper 3s. Cueto's had a fantastic year, upper 2s with regards to his ERA, 2.93 ERA, but the underlying metrics say it should be in the low 4s. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Cueto's a guy the model is taking a stance against, and I am as well. I think he's average. I don't think he's this good. There's no real data historically that indicates that he should be pitching at around a 3 ERA, and the underlying metrics for the season indicate he shouldn't be around a 3 ERA on the season. Now, he's already logged 129 innings. So it's not like one start's going to bring him magically back up to that number of 4. It's just that I think the best predictor going forward is that he's a 4 ERA pitcher, not a 3. It's been a great season for him. I just don't think he can keep it up. I think this Mariners offense is good enough to put up some runs against him. And I think this White Sox offense right now against righties below average is going to have a really hard time scoring off of Logan Gilbert. The game has a total of 7. It's a massive pitcher-friendly ballpark. And just what I'm always talking about going under in. I don't think there'll be a lot of runs in this game. That's why I'm not playing the Mariners run line, because I'm not confident in the home team winning by more than one. I just think the Mariners can pull it out. I do think it'll be a low-scoring game, but I think minus 148 is too short of a price. It's an A-grade play for me on them. Model says it should be minus 163, and a decent chance the Mariners win this game by one run, but not enough such that the White Sox run line makes sense. I think if you think it's going to be low-scoring, you just play the under. But like I said, I love the Mariners in this one. They've got a time. Their bats have had a chance to rest. I think it's more likely they win this one 3-2 than losing this first game 3-2. After that one, we will have the Braves and the Athletics. 9:40 Eastern, first pitch, Kyle Wright versus Cole Irvin. Obviously, Kyle Wright's got to be backed all season. I think he's a very good pitcher. Model gives him an 84 rating, 285 ERA on the season. Underlying metrics say it should be in the low threes. The guy I've been touting all season long. I really liked what we've seen from him. But Cole Irvin, a pretty solid pitcher as well, 335 ERA. Now, that is deflated because he's pitching in Oakland, which is massively pitcher-friendly, of course. Underlying metrics say it should be around 4, but he's a little above average. Edge to the Braves with Kyle Wright pitching, but not by a ton, just by a little bit. Of course, the Braves will have an edge with regards to the offense and the relievers. The Braves are a really good team. And going on the road, the model is diminishing the home field effect that it gives the A's because they don't have a ton of it there based off the fact that they never have any fans showing up. The only home field edge they get really is the fact that it's the travel situation. So they're still getting some of the home field advantage. It's just minimal. And you see that in the data that they end up playing better than expected on the road and worse than expected at home. So minimize the home field advantage accordingly. Even with that said, I think the price here is too high on the Braves at minus 212. I just think that's too much. Instead, I'm going to be on the A's. Same situation, though. I don't want to take them on the money line because I think there's a decent chance they lose by one with a total of 7. I mean, you're seeing a consistent theme here. We're into September. We're into fall. Unofficially, I guess, now that we've passed Labor Day, all these totals of 7 in baseball going to lead to a lot of low-scoring one-run games. And again, we're going to see some 4-2 games. Not all of them are going to be one-run games, right? So don't go investing your whole bankroll on all these games going to be one-run games. I just think there should be a lot more of one-run games. A lot of chances with these low-scoring games that dogs pull things off, especially in September. Things just get wonky. So I think the A's on the run line makes a lot of sense. Again, here the model says it should be Braves minus 190. So again, a price like minus 212 is just too much. It's A's or pass. Again, I'll take a chance on the run line. Plus 110 odds here. B grade pick. I think the A's can hang around. Obviously, it's very possible. Like I said, they lose 4-2, but I think they can hang in there. Cole Irvin's a solid pitcher. And if not, at least you still got plus odds. So if he gets beat up and the Braves win, it's like, that's plus odds. That's what happens sometimes. Again, you don't have to win all of them to make money. You just don't even have to win half of them at plus odds to make money. Just, little under depending on what your odds are. So even if the Braves run away, at least we've played got a plus odds play on it, which isn't bad. And then wrapping us up, we've got the Giants and the Dodgers. No line on this one as of yet, so no official pick. Again, I'll make official pick on this one. And the Blue Jays Orioles in the morning when we have confirmed pitchers and lines. It looks like it'll be Wei-Chi Huang versus Tyler Anderson. Huang, a pitcher that's been around a little bit, 28 years old, pitched in the minor league system, pitched overseas, bounced around a little bit. So we have a decent amount of data on him. Not really expecting anything. He's started about half of his games, AAA this year. Pitches a reliever in the other half. So it's not a guy I expect to go deep. His underlying metrics aren't really great there either. So he's not a guy I expect to go too deep, especially against the Dodgers, who are really good. I expect him to, obviously it's correlated. Right? If he's pitching well, he's more likely to go deep, and if he's not, he's not. But he's just not a guy I expect to do much. I expect him to turn it over to a bunch of Giants relievers who aren't good. Kind of we talked about the Giants last year, relievers being so good, a bullpen type game, or a situation like this where they, not explicitly a bullpen game, but one where you're going to heavily rely on them, or potentially could heavily rely on them, worked out pretty well for them last year, but this year with the relievers is not. And I don't expect this one to go very well for them either. Their offense is average, but it's worse against the lefty. And of course, Tyler Anderson's a lefty because the Giants are so left-handed heavy. This is all Dodgers. I faded the Dodgers a ton, but the model on this one says it should be Dodgers minus 2 78. I mean, that's a pretty steep price. I don't know what the price will be, but I could easily see myself being on the Dodgers run line on this one, assuming the price isn't too crazy. That's probably the way I would like to. I like Tyler Anderson. I think he's above average. Again, 268 ERA and almost 150 innings. Now the underlying metrics say it should be about a full run higher than that, but that's still an above average pitcher, an above average lefty against this Giants team that's so left-handed heavy. This Dodgers offense against like I said, mostly a bullpen game. This should be all Dodgers here. So we'll see when the number comes out what kind of value we can get where I play. But my hope is that we're getting the Dodgers on the run line. I'm hoping somewhere in that same ballpark that we're playing the Cardinals and the Astros at, in that minus 120-ish range. I think it's a fantastic investment on them. I think it just sets up perfectly for them. Just can't ask for much more facing throwing a lefty against the Giants and their bullpen. You just can't ask for much more. So it doesn't mean we won't play the Giants. There's a price for every team. And that's the thing I want to close here with. It's just a quick reminder. I encourage you, if you're already doing this, to figure out what your buy point on each team is, preferably before you see the odds. Come up with and say, or see what the model says, and just try not to look at the odds and kind of say what you agree with and how you would shift that. Because every team should have a buy price. And if it doesn't, I'm sorry, I don't want to step on your toes, but you're doing it wrong. The reason why is because as much as I like the Dodgers here, if you give me Giants plus 10,000, I'm going to put a lot of money on that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, and I use a ridiculous example to prove the point that every team has a buy point. Now, your buy point on the Giants, the model says 278. For me, it's probably more like 300, maybe upper two, but really plus 300 is like fine. Baseball's weird. Anything can happen. But your buy point might be plus 350, might be plus 400. It's fine. I'm not here to judge what your buy point is, and however you come up with that, whether the smartest and sharpest sports gamblers in the world. I'm using only one model because I'm just backing with my model, and I think it's good, and I think it's a great place to stand. And I'm not trying to muddy your waters here, but you look at other models, other people's work, other people's probabilities, right? 538 Fangraphs. There's all sorts of other sites that have great probabilities. People are coming up with, how you're viewing all that stuff. Everyone's got some slightly different numbers, right? There's a lot of good resources out there, but whatever it is, we're all talking about a buy point on a team, and whatever it is, whether it's 300, 350, 400, there's a buy point on the Giants here that would make sense for us to play them. I hope we're not on it because it's never fun, but you're seeing who would have wanted to back the Nationals the last 3 games, and that's made some people a lot of money. So just remember, there's a buy point for every team. You just got to figure out what it is, and just because you win or lose doesn't necessarily imply that it was the right or wrong buy point. The way we evaluate that is taking these grades over a long period of time and saying, when I say is it 66%, is it really close to 66%? When I say it's 54%, is that actually what it is? And that's how we evaluate these types of things. So I think the Dodgers are a great investment tomorrow, as long as the price isn't too bad. I'd love to be on their run line, but again, it's all about the price. Figure out what your buy point is. If it reaches it, go for it. And it's okay to have a wide middle where there's no play. That's totally okay. And it's okay if it's narrow or wide. It's your preference. So just things to think about here as you're assessing these situations, because again, there's a buy point on both teams. I'd love to be on the Dodgers. But from here, that's all about what the price ahead officially is. But hopefully you've got a good enough idea on a side that you like and that is a good long-term investment. So that's all that I have for you today. Again, I'll update a couple picks. Got a lot of A picks and a single C pick in the show. A lot of things I like. A picks starting off, though, I got the Pirates on the run line at plus 105. Got the Twins on the run line at minus 130 at the Yankees. Got the Cubs money line minus 165 at home against the Reds. Got the Cardinals on the run line at minus 120 at home against the Nats. I've got the Tigers at plus 122 money line at the Angels. Then I've got the Mariners at minus 148 money line at home against the White Sox. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder to check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link and more at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. See you again tomorrow for more MLB picks. Got more college football picks coming out for you this week. As always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.